Hey, housewives, come on in. You know the dirty dishes are still in the sink from yesterday and the laundry is still in the basket. Pop your AirPods in and make yourself at home here.
I'm Tracy.
I'm Tori.
And we are your Unlikely Housewives. Stepping out in faith and believing that God calls the unlikely, we are here to show you the appreciation and validation you deserve, lead you to authentic relationships, and release you of believing the cultural lies to restore your faith and wellness.
Pull up those high-waisted yoga pants, tighten your top knot, and reheat your coffee for the third time. Turn up the volume, and let's go.
Hey, housewives. Hey, housewives. Welcome back.
Hey, housewives. Welcome back. Tori and Tracy here.
Looking
Am I
different? No, you're fine. I mean,
Okay.
should we be frozen? I mean, we are freezing.
We are freezing. We are
weekend freezing.
Housewives, we're coming to you real and raw here. This is so not what the plan was today. We
Nope.
actually, we were set to record today, but I've got two kiddos sick, home and in bed, feeling so crappy, in fact, that my non-sleepers are actually sleeping. And so Tracy was going to come over and we were going to record, but I leave in just a couple of days. So I have got to get these babies feeling better and got to make sure that I didn't want Tracy to get sick because she's traveling too. And so we were just like, all right, yes, we just did one of these.
Our last episode was our snow day version, and it was impromptu just like this. And it was, to us, we're obviously, doing the podcast. We're used to this. It was just a episode, but we were like, you know what, we got to be real.
But we hope you really loved it. That's
Yeah.
what Tracy meant. It was an amazing episode. If you haven't listened to Snow Day, go back and listen. She's not telling you to say that.
Yes, I'm not telling you to miss it. I'm just saying it wasn't, one of our like phenomenal ones. I mean, it was just one. It was real. It was sitting at home in the heart of a snow day, and
Yes.
it was only snow day 2.
That was
And we had 2 more after that. And our kids only went to school one day in that 5-day week span, or 5-day school span. It was one day.
Yeah.
And they were off for like 3.5 weeks. And then it was a 3-day weekend because their Friday was a snow day. And here we are back on a Tuesday. And we are just trying to find our new rhythm. I mean, it's January 14th and it's like, how did we get here? I don't even know what I've done for the last 14 days.
I don't either. I literally texted a friend this morning and I was like, hey, there's this Zoom call tonight. We should totally be on it. I thought it was Monday, apparently. I know my children went to school yesterday. And she goes, yeah, I was on it last night. I was like, damn. Whoop. I was like, I have no idea yet what day it is.
I don't either. I'm still figuring it out.
So we were talking about like, okay, well, what are we going to record? This was before we knew children were going to be at home. And by the way, if you hear a grumbling in the background, that is not either one of our stomachs. It is actually Quasi, Tracy's resident
French
little
bulldog. It's quite the snore. Fireplace is here and they're cuddled in, my 2 snuggle bugs. And no matter how many times I tell him to stop snoring, he doesn't listen.
It doesn't matter. Hey. Also, like Andrew would say that I snore like that. And it doesn't matter how many times. There are times he wakes up and literally tells me, goes, you're lucky to be alive this morning. I almost took a pillow and smothered you. And I'm like, happy.
It was a week. I think it was a week and a half ago. I came and slept on the couch for the very first time of the frustration of the snoring because Chris snores. The dog doesn't bother me because he's like on the other side of the room and on the floor. Like I don't hear it, but my hubby's over here, and doing the snoring business. And this plays really well into our episode today.
Yeah, it does.
I'm talking about rest.
Yes. So Tracy sent our little thread, our Bible and Bubblies thread, a sermon. She listens to Pastor Jon Tyson. Is that the name?
Yeah, he's out of
Okay.
New York. Mm-hmm.
He's out of New York. He's got an accent. So if you love hearing accents. And so she was like, hey, I don't know if you've got a chance to listen to it. And I was like, oh, I have. Let's do the episode recapping this, like talking about rest and the Sabbath and what that looks like and kind of going over his sermon. So we'll put his sermon in the show notes for you if you want to listen to it. Because two, I have a different perspective from what Tracy's going to say. I don't even know what Tracy's going to say, but I can already tell that I'm going to have a different perspective. So,
and she knows she's going to have a different perspective because that's the way we are. Very two peas in an opposite pod. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes, in an opposite pod.
I love it. And as we are today, womp womp.
If you're just listening to us, where we're in our matching robes, our matching robes, we have little under eye patches on. I had
mine are sliding.
Yeah, mine are too.
I've had them on a while.
So don't mind us.
My timer just went off to order my bras. So real life, right there.
I didn't hear it. If that makes, I can hear
it
snoring.
in time. I caught it in time. I forgot that we were to record this morning, guys. So my afternoon reminders were going to be just fine.
Yeah. This is real.
So
I can feel my little eye thingies coming off now. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the title of the sermon was "Rest Must Be Stronger Than Exhaustion." Okay, so mind you how I got to the sermon. I think I want to tell a backstory because I think we promised our listeners that we would get a little bit more real in the daily and like what's going on. So a week ago, we recorded our snow day episode. And I don't know if you can tell listeners, if you're regulars, my mood was not perfect or happy or joyful.
I'm totally... when on our snow day episode, I need to post the picture that you sent me of like right after the coffee mug, the everything that you dropped. I mean, literally, y'all. She had a day. I mean, after
I had a day, and I know you guys know, but like brand new coffee mug, brand new full coffee mug, knocked off, spilled everywhere, broke the mug. I mean, just all the things, and I know you know the feeling of just utter frustration of just needing space, right? Like just the mental space. We're individuals, mamas. There's so much emotional, physical, all the things from all of our kids, our husband, and our own that sometimes you want to explode. And after all the snow days and the whole holidays and just all the things, this weekend came and we didn't have sports. Hallelujah. I don't have a weekend that doesn't have sports, right? But it was coming off of 2 weeks of being at home, not having sports. Like I was ready to just have something to get the kids out of the house. Mm-hmm. So we're just on another day and another day. And we went to church on Sunday and it was a great message. Absolutely loved it. We're starting a revive series. Our pastor's doing it. It's great. And I came home and I was just still in a mood. I'm like, okay, I have got to get myself out of this mood. So I'm just going to go to the room. I'm going to let everybody do their thing, watch football, friends are together, kids are with friends, whatever, right? And I am going to just pop in a sermon and just fold laundry, organize my closet because the closet was a disaster. And I try to do it once a year. So this was my once a year thing. I was like, I'm just diving in the closet. And I always go to Jon Tyson. He's kind of one of my favorites. Obviously, there's a couple other pastors I listen to, but I had just gone to his podcast. He started a series the week before. You guys go check him out on Apple Podcasts. His sermons on Apple Podcasts are just that portion of the message versus like his whole church. And so he started a series in January. It's his 20th year of teaching, whatever. So I went to go see his second one. Like, oh, it's there. Well, they don't post until the next day, kind of like every Sunday. Just they don't put it on Apple Podcasts till the next day. So I go to YouTube just to see if there's anything else I can listen to. And I don't even know how I got to it because this sermon he preached it 6 years ago. So
I was going to say
COVID,
that was, so I saw it was
long before all of, the last crazy times. And the title caught my eye, and it was that rest must be stronger than exhaustion. And I'm like, that's what I need. I've been home all this time, all off the holidays, off the snow days, and I'm exhausted. Like, I'm not rested. I'm exhausted. And I'm like, why? Like, why am I? Oh, time to go. I am exhausted. Like, what is the deal? And so I just started listening to the sermon and then pouring into my closet, which was absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to quote John's main quote from this, and then we're going to just chat about it.
Okay.
He said, Jesus is not glorified or seen as beautiful or desirable if his followers are exhausted and stressed and worn out in the exact same way of the world. I'm going to say that again. Jesus is not glorified or seen as beautiful or desirable if his followers are exhausted and stressed and worn out in the exact same way of the world.
With that quote, he
Mhm.
gave the example of when somebody says, like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And he was like, what if you just said, great, free,
Mhm.
like,
Well rested.
well rested, weightless,
Mhm.
like people would look at you like you're absolutely crazy and be like, or to a point that you would be like, well, what the hell are you doing? Because I want some
Mhm.
of that. Like, how are you? Like, I'm totally fine, stress
Yeah.
free. This
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
Like, no worries, no cares.
Mm-mm.
Great. And I just loved his example of what that sounded like in a conversation of being able to tell
Mhm.
somebody, like, because we do so often, and we have to remind ourselves this stuff too when, when somebody says, how are you? The answer's not like, it's a different question when it's one of your people. You say,
Yeah.
how are you? How are, not fine.
Mhm.
I don't want to hear fine. I want to hear, how are you? And, you can answer however that feels. But that is, like you said, that quote is perfect representation of, like, in secular terms, okay, let's go secular terms. We are trying to sell Christianity,
Mm.
right? As believers, we are trying to get people to buy in to Christ. We want them to join us. We want them to go to heaven with us. We want them to know his grace, his mercy, his love. We want they know all of that. But if we're living day to day and we look miserable, we
Mhm.
act miserable, we just talk about how life is so hard, and then and then we go, well, but I'm going to church on Sunday. Then what are we're not, well, gosh, I don't need to believe in God if her life, like, I'm having it
Right.
rough now. I don't need any more, So, like, that was something else that it made me think of. It was just like, wow, am I representing Christ, the lifestyle of being a
Mhm.
believer? Well,
Well, and I think that's where we've talked about this numerous times. The memes, the tired mom memes, the exhausted, let's get our coffee, let's get our, energy drinks, all the things. I mean, that is real life. Like, currently, that's what we're living.
Mhm.
But when you go back to, and this is one of the things that he said, was like, go back to even the 50s. I mean, shoot, you could go back to the early 80s, before the internet, before computer internet, right? The distractions, the opportunity for idolizing other things. I mean, obviously idolizing was there before in the 80s and in the 50s. I'm not saying it wasn't, but the amount of what's available now
Mhm.
at our fingertips is just what is exhausting us. We're
Right.
not finding rest because we're numbing out with another resource of TV or Netflix or scrolling or TikTok or something else that's not real and in a real space
Right.
and in real connection in our reality. And I think when I was like listening to this, I texted a couple of my friends, and I texted them the sermon too, and they responded back and they're like, oh, this is so good for what I need today. Like, I'm just, it was this Sunday after a very long season. And I'm like, I don't want to see any humans or, fur babies in my house. Like, I want to be in my space without someone cluttering, not physical clutter, just the mental clutter. And one of the things that he said in his sermon was that the mental rest isn't happening when you're just vegging on something else. You're just displacing it for the time being, but it's still there. You're not seeking that rest from Jesus and that clarity and just that soul revival space.
Let me clarify, not rest from Jesus, but rest with Jesus.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Another quote he said, which was phenomenal, was when we're doing that, like Netflixing or TikToking or whatever we're doing on our Sabbath, we take our time and we aren't working and we are relaxing. We're relaxing, not resting. And he said that we are medicating our mediocrity. And I thought that was so just eye-opening that we want something more. We want something deeper. We want more connection. We want more relationship, or, I want to have more conversation with my kids, but we can still be together and be on our phones and have Netflix and just be mediocre, because that's what we've become used to.
Well, what I found was interesting too is that he starts the sermon talking and giving all these statistics about the depression rate, the suicidal rate, all of these demographics of whether it's professions or different people or whatever, about how these,
and even in ministry,
even in ministry, how they all get burned out and exhausted. And he talks, now again, his congregation's in New York. And so he's also talking about the New York lifestyle. And when you think New York, what do you think? You think fast paced? Do you think hustle? You think, grinding, and he makes the point of how many of us come to New York and just say, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put my blinders on. I'm just going to work my little butt off for 2 years. It's just a season. And then I'll get out of this. And then it'll be something, then I'll be ahead of my colleagues because I busted my butt to get my, some extra money, or whatever the case may be, or some, extra experience. And so that he equates that. Now, I kind of went on the defense because I have felt called, my life has completely made an absolute 180 in the last 18 months because of owning the print shop and having now an outside job and doing what that looks like. And I mentally was like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But what if that is okay? And because you sent the sermon on Sunday, right? Yep. Okay. Monday morning, I had my my mentor coffee with my business mentor, and we were talking about it because something that him and I relate with, and he's helping me, is that work-life balance, right? And when
didn't he say in there that shouldn't exist work-life balance?
Right. He did. We were saying that, and he goes, don't think of it as grinding and just putting it in for a season. He goes, no, what you're doing is intentionality. And I was like, oh, that's so much better than saying that this is a season, or I'm just going to grind it out for 2 years. I'm just going to put my head down and blinders on. But intense intentionality, I can have intense intentionality about my goals for the business, and I can have intense intentionality about the break that I have, taking the rest, and one doesn't need to, like, there is no balance, right? It is what it is. Like Ken Valentine, our seasons of life are always not necessarily family friendly, right? There'll be seasons that take you away from your kids a little bit more, or whatever it is. Like God's calling you, and your job is just to obey. Your job is not for the results. And it doesn't matter what the results are, they're still God's. So,
well, I would say too on that. I mean, I think, and he does talk about that too. I think he was, the biggest piece of it was honing in on, are you resting more than you're exhausted? So that's like the overall umbrella of it. But he does talk about those that are working hard and really in the business world, or, whatever they're grinding out, writing books, or, different things that they're doing, that is purposeful for 6 days than to have a day of rest.
Right.
That's what he's talking about, is how, and I loved how he even talked about too, like Jesus did most of his healings on the Sabbath. And he talks about how he most likely did that so that you can see that healing can occur on your Sabbath. Like you can have that space. And it's something that we all talk about, Sabbath being something that we would love to be more intentional with. There's your intentionality, intentionality of taking that Sabbath for that day. And we don't. And it's, we have our little bits and pieces here and there, but it's not enough. We've talked about this on our team sports episodes, and how everything's always on a Sunday too, because the majority of, our society isn't practicing religion at all.
Right. Well, they are practicing a religion, just not Christianity. The other thing too is the realistic. I wanted to encourage ourselves to yes, 24 hours seems like a really long time. But even if you as a family take 2 hours, start with 2, and you're going, let me just do 2 hours. Let me just see, start small, take off small times. And then God uses all things, and he will not, what did my mentors, he said, it's not about finding the time, because time is never lost. It's about making the time. And I was like, oh, that's good. You're not going to find 2 extra hours of your week every time. It's about making the time. And then when you start to make the time consistently, God will bless that. You will see result, you will see whatever you're making less time of, it's almost as God just exponentially blesses the things in that sphere that you aren't doing anymore because you made time for him. And that's been, and most of the time that's work, right? That's most of the time it's a season of when you're okay, I can't just shut it off, or I need to make that one more deal, or whatever, that God says, okay, well, now that you're putting me first, let me bless your business. Or now that you're putting me first, I'm going to bless your kids' sports and their games and whatever it is, which is God. God is sovereign. It's
absolutely.
I'm yawning just thinking about it.
That's the rest that you need. You should soak this up, this forced rest. This is what moms get. We get forced rest when our kids are home sick. We're okay, they're not going anywhere, doing anything. Let's just be with them.
Yes. And I think that's what I'll be doing here shortly, is I'll be laying next to a sweet baby who doesn't feel good. So I highly recommend the sermon. And he said that it was a part of a series, that it's
I didn't even look into that.
The series is something that must be greater than, or he said rest must be greater than exhaustion, right? Or stronger than exhaustion.
Stronger than exhaustion. So, you're right.
So he had a couple of other things in there. So maybe that would, look at those titles. But again,
He does a lot of great series.
I love how God used it for this. And I've got this sweet girl who's not feeling good. So I'm gonna call it an episode and go be mama. And housewives, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for resting with us. And also want to remind you to go check out our merch. Tracy, you need a new coffee mug. So go to bit.ly/unlikely merch and grab coffee mugs, grab a sweatshirt, or maybe we should try robes. Do you think there's a robe?
I know,
we
right?
could do the unlikely housewife robe. Or
I am all good recording in a robe every week.
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
I know you would be. I would. No, can we put makeup on, please? Yes.
Put makeup on my robe.
There you go. Yes, we can do that. That would be like a Victoria's Secret shoot, wouldn't it? But yeah, check out that if you guys support. Share this share this episode with a friend, with another mama who needs the rest, who needs the encouragement that like it doesn't have to, that we can take that day. God will bless that day and time, and we don't have to run 365 days a year. We can have those one day a week things. Those 52 days. We get 52 days of Sabbath a year. That's all. That's it. Doesn't that sound good?
It does.
Can we take all the 50, like a vacation of 52 days of Sabbath?
That's the other thing, is fitting in those vacation times of just completely unplugging.
Yes.
Gotta make
highly recommend. Ladies, go talk to your husbands about scheduling a vacation. Even if it's just for you. Going back to our travel solo episode. So there you go. Say, if you're not going to vacation with me, I'll take one without
I will go alone.
Yes. So until next time, housewives.
All right. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.
Whether we made you laugh or cry today, we pray you feel appreciated, bolder and braver than yesterday, stronger and more faithful for tomorrow, and living in who you were made to be today. Join our online community on Facebook, link in the show notes, and be sure to review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Until next time, housewives, we give you permission to walk confidently, free, and to be intentional in your slippers or stilettos.